So for more on all of this, I want to bring in CBS News senior correspondent Charlie D'Agata. Good to see you, Charlie. So this is fascinating. I think for a lot of people, after watching this story, they probably kind of dug into the Wagner group and who are they and who's Prigozhin. How does a guy go from Putin chef to not commandeering, but to collecting a group of trained fighters that are threatening the Kremlin?
Yeah, and this is real. My phone was blowing up on Friday night. We saw the Wagner group headed from Rostov-on-Don up to Moscow. The Russians had to call in Chechens in support. You got to remember that all the Russian forces are fighting in Ukraine. They aren't exactly there to defend their own country. And Moscow went into lockdown. These are all real things. The president had to address this real thing that was happening. But in terms of Yevgeny Prigozhin, he's a 62-year-old, essentially a career criminal. He was locked up, did a 12-year term, 12-year sentence for armed robbery and assault. He then went on to build this business empire, largely restaurants in St. Petersburg. Vladimir Putin at the time was a rising star in St. Petersburg, and that's where they became friends, and he became known as Putin's chef. But soon it started to go into other sort of alleged organized crime deals. He started up internet troll organizations. He's wanted by the FBI for meddling in the U.S. Elections. He's now involved in Wagner, are involved in several different countries in Africa, largely in the Middle East, and now in Ukraine. And what's not new is he has been criticizing, as you saw in these report, criticizing the defense minister and top Russian generals during this campaign, particularly in Bakhmut, where he said they've been starved of ammunition, and then claiming that they were attacked by Russian forces. So this is a character. It will be interesting to see how he deals with his future, especially the next few days ahead. But what was going on through the weekend was real.
As I was watching the coverage, I was thinking, well, this can only end one way, because if you are targeting Putin and you don't complete the task, then what happens to you? Well, it turns out what happens is they negotiated something here, and the Wagner group, remains. So can we talk about the impression that is left, or whether or not this has damaged Putin's reputation? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think undoubtedly it has damaged President Putin's reputation, because you don't square off, as you said, you don't square off against President Putin and live long to tell the tale. Rather than be cracked down, or rather than take this, especially Prigozhin head on, which is what a strong armed leader like President Putin would have done. Yes, negotiated a deal. In fact, dropped charges against him, enabled him to go to Belarus, to be banished to Belarus. More than that, said that no hard feelings essentially for any of the Wagner group who will be invited to join the regular Russian military. So this is a negotiation that took place when there was literally what appeared to be a true coup attempt. So yes, President Putin does not come off with a strong man image because of what's unfolded over the past 72 hours.
I wonder too if the Wagner group is a little weakened, if the Russian military is going to has offered to absorb some of the Wagner group's fighters, which I don't know how that's going to work out, because it appears to me these two groups have very different military cultures. But that being said, that would be a significant number of men that would no longer be available to Prigozhin. What sort of impact could this have on the group beyond Russia?
Well, you're right to say that there are loyalties for Prigozhin and for Wagner, not necessarily with the Russian military. And you also have to remember that these forces, tens of thousands of them, are battle-hardened. They have fought some of the most difficult, bloody battles in Ukraine. They consider themselves to be part of the regular Russian military. So that is Syria, helping some leverage with the public in exchange for lucrative deals on gold mining, and that's one of the things that's helping to finance the Wagner Group. So Wagner goes way, way past just Ukraine and Russia itself, and without its leader in charge, you may be able to dissolve Wagner in Ukraine, obviously in Russia itself, but what happens to the larger Wagner network that is still intact around the globe?
Well-funded, well-trained, well-armed, leaderless military group. This cannot go well. Charlie, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Here are 5 washing machine tips for better laundry. Number 1. The armed insurrection launched by the chief of the paramilitary Wagner group, Yevgeny Prigozhin, lasted less than a day. But it was the biggest challenge to the rule of the Russian president.
Это удар в spinu нашей стране и нашему народу.
On Saturday, Wagner seized the southern military district headquarters in the city of Rostov, the main logistical hub for Russian forces operating in Ukraine. They were rolling towards Moscow when a deal said to be negotiated by the Belarusian president between Prigozhin and Putin averted a potential confrontation. The Wall Street Journal's Moscow bureau chief Ann Simmons explains what the short-lived mutiny means for Putin.
This crisis is the most significant test I believe that Putin has faced in his 23-year-old. Putin had to back down to a certain degree because he had to go to the negotiating table. In the morning on Saturday, we had Vladimir Putin accusing Prigozhin of instigating an armed rebellion. By the evening, we were seeing that Prigozhin is forgiven and the charges dropped. Now, we do not know what kind of deal Prigozhin got out of this. It is said that he will be going to Belarus, but the Russian population has now seen that President Putin isn't as invincible. This has definitely exposed vulnerability of his power in the eyes of the Russian elite. In terms of what this crisis shows, it shows that there was very little resistance to Prigozhin on his way to Moscow. The very fact that Prigozhin and his troops were able to get within striking distance of Moscow speaks volumes. It shows on the one hand that soldiers in the Russian military maybe weren't willing to take up arms against Prigozhin. His force is quite feared, and we also have to note that a large portion of Russia's army is now on the front lines of Ukraine. Also, there were pictures and videos of people actually greeting Prigozhin and his troops, at least in Rostov in the south. That shows that maybe there is this level of support for Prigozhin that Putin probably underestimated. The question now will be, how does Vladimir Putin regain the narrative that despite that slight glitch, nothing has changed? I still have power. But it's definitely clear that his power, at least the perception of his power, has been eroded.
Several questions remain in the wake of a short-lived rebellion against the Kremlin, which has the White House questioning the strength of President Vladimir Putin's regime.
16 months ago, Putin was on the doorstep of Kyiv in Ukraine, looking to take the city in a matter of days and race the country to the back. Now, it's having to defend Moscow.
On Friday, Yevgeny Prigozhin, the leader of the Wagner mercenary group, the key asset for Russia on the front lines in parts of Ukraine, announced a revolt against Russian military leaders. Prigozhin and his troops took control of 2 Russian military hubs in the south. Russian media reported the downing of multiple helicopters and a military communications plane. Prigozhin's troops cheered by many Russians, but just 120 miles from Moscow, they turned back after a mysterious deal was reached. According to the Kremlin, the deal called for Prigozhin to leave Russia for neighboring Belarus. But this morning, Prigozhin himself has not confirmed the deal, and his whereabouts remain unknown. And it's unclear whether any of Prigozhin's estimated 25,000 troops will join in inside of Belarus to support the attack.
All sorts of good questions. It's going to have to address in the weeks and months ahead.
According to the Washington Post, U.S. intelligence was aware Prigozhin had been planning armed action against the Kremlin since mid-June. Former CIA Director David Petraeus had this warning for Prigozhin, referencing a number of prominent Russians who have died in unclear circumstances in the past.
Prigozhin kept his life but lost his Wagner group. He should be very careful around open windows in his new surroundings in Belarus, where he's going.
Ukraine hopes to capitalize on the chaos. Wagner troops have played a crucial role in the war, taking part in some of the longest battles in eastern Ukraine. Experts fear this weekend's revolt could make Putin more desperate. Ukraine's intelligence chief says Russia has completed preparations to potentially blow up the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, saying the situation has never been so serious.
And meanwhile, oil prices rose overnight after the revolt sparked concerns about political instability.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here.
Are those videos relating to ABC, NBC, CBS, and Wall Street Journal, videos relating to talking about the Wagner group, relating to Prigozhin's military and Putin becoming, his power becoming weakened, you know what I mean, or, you know, potentially becoming weakened, you know what I mean, so pretty much that division between them, man, the revolt. They were giving a little history relating to Prigozhin. He was a chef, friend of Putin. From that, he rose up in the ranks to do different things, businesses, things outside of business where, you know, then, you know, even up to now. He did a stint in prison instead, so armed robbery. So he's an interesting character, pretty much. Get some scriptures. I'm going to go to Matthew 12:25. Before I go to that one, let me go to 2nd Esdras 15 and 16. Go to 2nd Esdras 15. And they were talking about in that report that the Wagner group is not only in Ukraine, but it's spread out through. It's pretty much a paramilitary group. You know, I mean, mercenaries, mercs. You know, I mean, pretty much contracted. So they in Africa, they are in Ukraine, and different various parts of the world, man. You know, so they're a big group. Second Ezra 15 and 16, for there shall be sedition, which is mutiny, uprising, revolt, among men in invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and their courses of action shall stand in their power. So you see in that revolt, you see in that mutiny, relating to political, social, economical, different various things. You see in that a video showing the revolt against relating to favoring the Wagner group, and pretty much Putin is losing his from optics his appearance of power, man, his influence, appearance of power, man. So they pretty much going against him, man. You know what I mean? Matthews 12 and 25 and 26. Yahushua knew their thoughts and said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself brought to desolation. So a kingdom that divides itself, desolation is going to be destroyed, man. And every city or house divided against itself, it shall not stand. So it's going to ultimately fall, man. 26. That's what you're seeing, the division between these powers, man. Was nations, kingdoms, you know what I mean, rulerships, division within the sex of sex, man. In groups and different things, man. So you see in that division, whether it's a political or a social, economical, whatever the case might be. Eventually, what's going to happen is Satan cast out Satan. Now that Satan is the one in position of power, the carnal counterpart on earth, man. He that divideth against himself, how shall then his kingdom stand? So if it's division, strife, and contention internally within the ranks, man, ultimately that's going to cause that fracture and it's going to cause that collapse, man. Go to let me see. I'll go to Mark 3:24. And if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. And if Satan rise up against Satan and be divided, he cannot stand but have an end. So his end is ultimately is going to be not be in the position of power, man. He's going to eventually fall, man. Especially if you have division, contention, strife internally within the ranks of the ones in power, man. And that's what you're seeing. You're seeing Satan divide against Satan, man. You're seeing these nations and kingdoms going against one another, man. Even division internally among one another. So you're seeing it. You're seeing the divide in this kingdom as well, man. Politicians, Democrats, Republicans, even though that's a purpose, that would be called a purpose oppositional, pretty much appearance, man. What that means is pretty much they give an appearance of being opposite, but they actually working together But they just doing it in a different manner, man. So for example, that would be Democratic and Republicans, man, only to give the optics and appearance of being adversaries, but they actually they're working on the same team. You know what I mean? They just playing their opposite roles for the appearance sake, man. So for them, you know, pretty much that two birds, they just work. They just that one bird, you know, which is that system. They just within that system that you have two different parties. They're playing their parts in the oppositional role as they play, man. You know what I mean? But they're actually working together and cohesive together as far as that one bird of system, man. So they give an appearance of having an oppositional. You know what I mean? Pretty much one is going to be a little bit better than the other. Good cop, bad cop, in a matter of speaking, man. You know what I mean? So they playing their roles, man. In a matter of speaking, shalak. So Satan rise up against Satan. He cannot be divided. And be divided, he cannot stand, but have an end. So his end is going to be not being in power. His system, his power structure being collapsed, man. That's what's going to happen. 27. And no man can enter into a strong man's house, which is the one in power, and spoil his goods except he first bind that strong man. So you got to bind that strong man. You got to disable him, man. You got to disable him, man. That strong man. So you can what? You can spoil his goods, take his goods, take them, man. So symbolically, that's what the powers to be going to do. You relating to Yahweh Shem Yashah. They're going to go into that strong man's house. They're going to bind him, take him down, spoil his goods, take his rulership, take everything from him, man. You know what I mean? That's why Scripture says they're going to set one that's profitable. That's on Sirach 10:4, man. And go with Scripture talking about Zechariah, talking about he's going to go into, let me get it real quick. And I will bring forth the Lord of hosts, and it shall enter into the house of the thief, which is that strong man's house, and enter the house of him that sweareth falsely by my name, and it shall remain in the midst of his house, and shall consume it with the timber thereof and the stones thereof. So the Lord is going to go through that strong man's house. He's going to bind him and he's going to consume him and ultimately destroy him, man. You know what I mean? Take him out of rulership, take his power, man. So I'll go with that, you know? That's 5 and 4 of Zechariah. So you see in the division relating to these powers, man. I hope this helps in some way. This is Ayah Wolf. I want to give all praise Yahweh Shem Yashah, Bashim Rakakadash. Honors to those elders and the men in truth, regarding this truth and knowledge of the Wadi Yahweh Shem Yashah, for the spirit, the elders, apostles, men in truth on down. So we know this truth and knowledge. And call Yahweh Bashim Yashah, Bashim Rakakadash. Give all praise Yahweh Shem Yashah, Bashim Rakakadash. This is Ayah Wolf. I hope it helps y'all.